To have strong internal boundaries, we must identify our pseudo, fake, or systems-triggered empathy for others. Why is that important? And again, the title of this video is We Must Care Less to Set Internal Boundaries. Does that mean I want to teach the world to not be caring about other people? No. I'm a very caring person, actually overly caring, codependently caring for many decades. A pastor, bishop, a therapist, a coach. I do care about other people, but I don't want to care about them in a way that triggers me to leave me behind in that process. And there is this type of empathy which does do that. It's important to understand that often our caring for others isn't true caring or empathy, but it's actually emotional enmeshment. That's not caring. That's emotional enmeshment. And so I preach this and teach this all the time because I think it's so important. Because I've found that the more I have internal boundaries, the less enmeshment I experience in relationships, the more truly caring I can be. And that's what my goals and values are. True caring for others is not what you think. When you truly care for someone else, you also allow them to struggle and to grow up. Often we consider caring is actually just us not being able to handle our own emotions of seeing other people going through the necessary pain of growth and change. We can't stand to have them suffer. And so then we care. But it's not maturity and it's not caring. It's our lack of maturity and our emotional fusion with them. Or it is us not being able to stand up against manipulative feeling states to control our feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. Someone can say, hey, I'm hurting, and that can mean any number of things. Number one, if I just fell down the stairs and I say, hey, I'm hurting, you probably wouldn't think of that as really being very manipulative, and you would expect that I would feel hurting, and I would feel hurt, and I would feel pain for falling down the stairs. However, if you have a parent or a sibling that goes, oh, I just hate when you hurt me this way, isn't that a different hurting than the other hurting? And do each require the same amount of empathy? And that's where I think there's a difference. Often in dysfunctional families and relationships, caring is actually reactivity. Others' feelings are a trigger for us to think, feel, and behave in a certain way that has been long programmed from long ago. In dysfunctional families and relationships, the caring is a rule you must not break. This keeps the dysfunctional codependent status quo. How dare you not continue to feel sorry for mom who is always having a bad relationship with dad? Those are systems dynamics. And it seems very caring to think, should I be empathizing or caring less about mom and how she's interacting with dad? And could that influence the system even in a positive way? And certainly for me too. Caring should never be an obligation by and directed by others. In other words, if I fell down the stairs and I say I'm hurting, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just talking to you about my internal state. I'm not asking you to change your behavior, thoughts, and feelings in the system with you and me. But when a family member, a husband, a child, whatever goes, oh, I'm just, you are just making me feel so terrible. Now, wait a minute. I'm telling you these bad feelings I'm having so that it will have an impact on you, so you will change or be different. Caring should never be an obligation by or directed by others. In healthy relationships, caring for others does not mean not caring for yourself. If you're caring for others without caring for yourself, you are actually not really caring for anyone. You are participating in the system's relationships caring game, but you aren't actually caring. Because how can you care about somebody else and have no regard for yourself? Now, does that mean a hero or someone who's sacrificial? Hey, if I'm going to go, pull someone. Well, I remember there was a car wreck that two elderly people in a car had flipped over, and I was the only one around, and I stopped and I got them out of there. They were upside down, got them out of their seat belts, pulled them out of the car. I got cut with glass and all of that. So was I being selfless? In a sense, I was. But this was my values that I felt was important. And they didn't have this wreck and want me to pull them out of the car to manipulate me to do anything. I didn't owe them. They weren't saying, now, if you really loved me, you'd come over here and get me out of this car. There was no external pressure in that way. Now, could that mean I might get cut up? Yes, there is some sacrificial caring we can do, but we want to do that out of our mature self, not out of our inner child, neurotic, old issues self. I hope you'll like and subscribe and comment on this video. Boundary problems begin with fusion or enmeshment with another. We cannot set or maintain boundaries because we overfeel with them. And that's one of the things about setting internal boundaries. We overfeel. There's too much transference of emotions back and forth between us. And that's often what is the fatal flaw with setting boundaries. And it will ultimately make boundaries into no boundaries. Also, our trauma or fear will bond us to other people in an unhealthy way. And when we worry about what they will do, feel, or think, we over-empathize. We share too many emotions flowing back and forth between us, and we need to stop this. So if you notice, I'm saying stop allowing the flow of emotions back and forth between you. And one way to do that is think about as not caring. But actually, you can actually mature and actually care more if you practice that. And I found people to do that. I did that. I felt like I was so free to care in a much different way. Once I didn't, and I remember Edwin Friedman, who's a great author, he said, so we learn how not to care so we can actually care. And that's the paradox with self-differentiation and relationships. The more you don't care, the more you can actually care. I'm not talking about narcissists. This is not a message for narcissists. This is a message for most of us who are more codependent and have many issues and struggles from the past. And with that emotional flow back and forth, we keep pinging each other with those feelings. Reactivity, looks, attitude, behaviors, voice tone, words, as well as systems anxiety. We're programmed to have this anxiety in this situation and an action-reaction process. I remember when I was studying and went through chaplaincy for pastoral counseling, And that was one of the biggest things when you go in to talk with someone who's a patient. We were all codependents, and most all of us overcaring Christians and overcaring chaplains. And so we'd go in and, we would just be overwhelmed by their pain, their feelings, their, suffering that they're going through. Some of them are certainly legitimately suffering. They're in the hospital. They may be very ill. But I'm not going to be able to hold space with them and to be with them in a real, mature, caring way if I stay stuck in that emotional transfer back and forth between them and me, which I learned growing up in my family. That was the norm. And so we had to learn how to care less. And it really was a paradox in that we could learn to care less, and then we end up actually caring more in a more effective way. And we became much more effective chaplains. Not because we didn't care about anybody, but we knew how we could care without being totally enmeshed with their pain or feelings. That's the internal boundaries we want to have. I want to know where I end and you begin. Well, if you're first a chaplain, you go into the hospital room, you don't know where you end, you don't know where they begin. It's all just meshed together. And then, of course, many times we get manipulated. We might even manipulate them. And nobody really comes out really being effectively cared about and helped in a responsive way. Having internal boundaries are those emotional states that include states like, so what? If my mom goes, oh, well, Jerry, I just don't know why you always want to hurt me like this. Well, it's kind of like, well, so what? I mean, I'm not causing it. I don't know. Now, I'm not trying to be mean or aggressive. It's just sometimes a so what response can be very helpful. An internal so what response. I don't tell everybody, see, so what? It's my internal that I'm trying to keep myself autonomous or differentiated. I'm not responsible for your feelings or your thoughts. I am not. It's not my responsibility to care about your hurt, anger, worry, or sadness. Do you know that's even true in a therapy session? When I first started doing therapy with clients, I felt responsible for all their feelings. I went home and worried about all their feelings. What good did that do for them? And it didn't do any good for me. Then I began to realize these are not my problems, not my feelings, not my worry, not my sadness. But it doesn't mean I can't care. I just don't want it flooding me. I don't want those emotions just flooding back and forth where there's no difference between me and you. Now, after I began to learn that, I could actually be effective in helping someone. I don't have to maintenance or care about your feelings. And I think it's very important, I don't have to maintenance or care about your feelings if you're not caring for yourself. And in fact, if you're not caring for yourself, then those negative feelings are going to continue to probably be a problem. Well, if I keep assuaging them, if I keep putting a balm or lotion or enmeshing codependent salve on top of them, how are they ever going to be resolved? So actually, I'm kind of in the way of you getting healing, help, and maturity. Others will use their hurt, anger, upsetness, and disapproval, making us feel we are causing them to keep bonded to us. And they feel our internal boundaries are hurtful. Like, sorry to hear you're feeling hurt, Mom. I think that's a reasonable comment to feel. And I'm saying, I'm sorry you feel hurt, Mom. But inside, I'm going, it doesn't matter to me. That's your hurtness. And many times that hurtness is meant to get me to do something else. So I can still be appropriate as an adult. Sorry to hear that. But I'm not feeling guilty. I'm not feeling ashamed. That's your feeling of hurt. That's your anger. That's your guilt. That's your upsetness. And we, of course, want to take responsibility for our own behaviors. If I have intentionally hurt someone, then I should feel healthy shame. That's appropriate. But it's not appropriate for someone to feel hurt to make me feel shame. That's not appropriate, and I'm not going to care about that, if that makes sense. It's not hurtful for me to not get involved in your emotional life, especially if you're not taking care of your own emotional life. I'm not being hurtful by staying outside of it. That's not hurtfulness. It may be interpreted that way. Well, and I'm sorry it's interpreted that way, but it doesn't mean that's how I really feel. For example, my boss, I had a boss once, and she would feel hurt so that I would feel guilty and comply. When actually I had done nothing to hurt or upset her. But her hurt would flow to me, and I would want to fix or assuage it. I would over-sympathize with her. But actually, it just kept the old pattern just going. I needed to learn to not take this signal as anything I need to fix. Jerry, I just don't understand why you don't respect me. By the way, I had done nothing to disrespect her. I've never told anybody I disrespect her. There's been no communication that way at all. So is that something I should fix? No, it's her distortion. I'm sorry that you feel that way. But I'm not going to get involved in that. That's my internal voice. And I would begin to work to tolerate others' pain, tolerate others' hurt, tolerate others' anger, and tolerate others' upsetness as theirs, and not having it flow in here to me. Again, I'm not talking about being uncaring to other people. There are times to care, there are times not to care. And many of us get those confused. I was hoping this video might help a little in clearing that up. We can care when others are having true feelings of hurt or upsetness, and they are not used to manipulate the relationship system or the relationship dynamics or to get us to change or react. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and be wise. And look for my next video on more on internal boundaries.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Avaya University and our Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal curriculum. I'm Mike Allen, and this is my partner, Andy Anderson. We're the founders of Avaya and the online communities Enlightenment Village and A Course in Miracles Village.
Today's teaching from Avaya University and Jerry Wise explores reducing self-abandonment. You will discover how a family systems approach can help you better understand abandonment. You'll discover what self-differentiation is and why it's important in dealing with abandonment issues. And you'll discover how doing family of origin work can also help you with abandonment issues. All of these amazing insights and more are in this teaching from Avaya University and Jerry Wise. We hope you enjoy, apply the insights in your life, and share them with your friends and family.
And from all of us at Avaya, enjoy your journey, and thanks for letting us be part of it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal. I am your co-host, Andy Anderson. I am the co-founder of Avaya Media and Enlightenment Village with my partner, Ike Allen. Thank you so much for joining us again. And in this event, as you know, we are talking with really great people. We're talking with therapists, we're talking with doctors, with authors, with relationship experts, and they are sharing with us some really great tools and strategies to help us let go of our experiences of abandonment, of betrayal, so that we can live peaceful, powerful lives. And today, our guest is going to be talking about reducing self-abandonment. So I am super excited about this topic. Please, everyone, welcome Jerry Wise. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, hi, Andy. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I am so excited to have you, and I'm glad that our mutual friend Mark Smith recommended you, and he is also part of this event. So I want to I want to tell everyone a little bit about you and your work, and then we'll dive in, Jerry. So Jerry Wise is an international life coach, and he specializes in coaching self-differentiation, which is something I want to talk with you about, Jerry. So for 40 years, he has also been a professional in psychotherapy and family therapy, and now in life coaching. He's also been a professional musician, a pastor, therapist, consultant for family businesses, and a family systems expert and a popular speaker. So let's dive into abandonment. I know that the topic of this interview today is reducing self-abandonment. So could you start us off by telling us how you would describe abandonment and then what self-abandonment is?
And I think there's a lot of discussion about what is abandonment and how do we look at abandonment. And I believe when people they will take their preconceived notions about what abandonment is and they take it to the information that's out there. My notion of abandonment is the way I look at it is a much more zoomed out approach. In other words, let's say I just had a client I was talking to not long ago, and they were talking about how their father had abandoned the family. And so he felt abandoned because his father had just left the family in the lurch and felt great abandonment over that. Now, if we look at an individualistic approach to that, then we'd say, well, he has abandonment issues, and so we should help him fix his abandonment issues. Now, that's not incorrect, but I'm not sure it's the whole picture. The whole picture is a zoom out in which, if we look at the whole family of origin, we see how that abandonment affects the emotional field of the whole family and affects the emotional field inside the client, or inside the young man who was talking about his abandonment. And so that then gives us a view to look at abandonment as having been discarded, left, rejected. Those are all different words, though, that have different meanings, but at least has some of those abandonment notions in them. And with the client who's been abandoned, they experience a loss, they experience a rejection or an abandonment in which they don't understand. Often, many times, they can be when they are young. And they will maintain the integrity of that parent, let's say, and that the dad left, but there must be something wrong with me. Not something wrong with dad. We got to maintain his integrity because I need his love and acceptance forever. So I'm going to paint him good, and then I paint me bad. Then I have abandonment issues. Now, we can also be abandoned as adults as well, of course. But what I find most often is if an adult gets abandoned, they oftentimes have abandonment issues from long ago when they were children. So abandonment is when we experience an unexpected loss that creates a hole in us that we have not filled. And have difficulty filling. And then we can talk about what self-abandonment is like. And I didn't know if you want me to kind of explain that a little bit.
I would love that. I want to make a quick just response to what you said. I've never thought about it the way you just said it, how, right, if a child has the experience of being abandoned by a parent, that we want to maintain the integrity of that person. So, right, because they're our brick wall, they're our rock, they're our everything. And if we don't, right, maintain that integrity, then right, we're at risk. And so then we put it on ourselves that it's our fault, and there's still this, piece of integrity for us, like that loves us, but it's our fault. There's something wrong with us. We need to fix us. I love how you put that. That's,
we are defective because they abandoned us.
yes, got
And
it.
it must be our defectiveness. And because if you were to, and I've worked with families, couples, individuals for years and decades, and how many people will come to me and say, my parents didn't love me. You know how many times I've heard that in my whole career?
A lot.
Years? No. 5 times.
Really? Okay.
Because they say, I know they were awful. I know they did this. I know but they still love me.
I see.
They still maintain that integrity.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying they don't feel unloved by their parents, because there's that too. When you get beaten or if you get abused, you're not going to feel loved. But when I say, do you think your parents did not love you at all? Oh, no. They will defend parents even when the most horrendous things have happened.
Right.
Because we needed our parents so much that you can't degrade or denigrate their integrity, because I need them.
Right.
And if I get abandoned, even though dad was wrong for doing that, but was it mom? Was it me? Was it, we internalized the reason.
Right.
And then we feel very broken and of course, dad doesn't come back and go, oh, by the way, son, I left and abandoned all the family, not because of you, but because I'm selfish and a narcissist. I just thought I'd let you know that. How many parents do that? I mean, that's not going to happen where that kind of clarity is. And please don't feel responsible. It's all my fault.
Right.
Because I'm the adult. And I love you, and let's have a relationship.
I would imagine, particularly if they're selfish narcissists, that doesn't happen very often.
Not often at all.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That is an amazing description of abandonment and how it can affect us. So yes, I would love to dive into self-abandonment.
Okay. And then, so what happens is when we get abandoned and we feel the ping of it, because there's a pinging going on in the emotional field. When we feel this circuit surge because of an abandonment or rejection or discarding or those kinds of things, when we feel that surge, again, what does it do to us? It wounds our sense of self. It creates pain, guilt, often shame, confusion, self-questioning, a lack of self-acceptance. Because, when someone abandons you, are you sure it wasn't your fault? And why would someone abandon you if you're totally wonderful? So even if they abandon you for the wrong reason, well, there's no good reasons to abandon somebody. Even if someone abandons you, again, we look for our failings. And particularly if we were children, then we know who it's our failings. So we internalize that, and then we end up abandoning ourselves. We take over the role that our parent who abandoned us, I'm just using that as an example. There are many other abandonments, but that's one. Death can be an abandonment, divorce, all kinds of ways in which we've been left. And that's the process of being abandoned, is being left. They're the lever and I'm the left one. And that can be very painful. And so if I'm the left one, what's wrong with me? I internalize this negative part about me because, my parent, my dad left us, and boy, I better be good so I can be loved and accepted. And I already messed up once, dad left. But what we do is we internalize it, and then no longer do we care for ourselves. And so we self-abandon. And I find that a lot of people who work on their abandonment issues do some work with their grief or loss issues about abandonment, because it hurts, or they feel sad, or they feel, rejected. And they do some grief work over that, but they don't do the stopping of the self-abandonment.
Right.
And so it continues on, and then they keep getting stuck and recycling in abandonment issues.
Mm-hmm.
It just keeps going, even though now I've dealt with that. I've talked to a therapist. I've talked to my pastor. I've talked to all my friends. I go to a recovery group, but I'm still get pinged by abandonment because you're still abandoning you.
Mm.
That may have been worked on, but you're still carrying on the self-abandonment. I think I had a note here. We don't learn to count on ourselves, and we can't count on ourselves because we will abandon ourselves, and we know it. Well, how do you think that helps our self-esteem deep down in our unconscious regions? Or
Poorly.
Very poorly. And so when I tell people, can you count on you? How people tell me, well, no.
Mm-hmm.
There's your issue.
Mm.
Now, I know you couldn't count on your dad. With that, we got worked out.
Yeah.
You've written letters to your dad. You've expressed feelings. You've cried over dad leaving, and he shouldn't have. But then we have, can you count on you, or are you going to be dad to you?
Mm.
Are you going to continue to be dad to you? We need to get you to count on you.
Right.
And they're going, oh, well, I don't even like me. I said, of course.
Yeah.
Why would you'd abandon somebody you didn't like? And if we don't like us, you're not going to get your abandonment issues healed. You're not going to get them restored. You have to do something about the hole that's left in there, because you'll keep acting out that hole. I'll go marry an alcoholic. I'll go marry a narcissist. I'll go get into a job where I recreate my family of origin. And you don't know how many times we will recreate our family of origin in our work, in our church, we're going to recreate it because we bring all of us to the system.
Right.
And so people come back and go, my boss is just like my dad. My supervisor is just like my mom. The people around me act just like my brother and sister did. I go, yeah, makes total sense.
Right.
You're still abandoning yourself.
Right.
And so that's why you're sitting where you're sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that because I'm a genius. I only say that to give you another way of looking at this abandonment process so that you can heal further. That's what I want to say, because that was one of the biggest breakthroughs I ever had with abandonment issues, when someone helped me and confronted me about, well, Jerry, you're still abandoning you.
Right.
And I went, I do.
Right.
I don't like me, and I'm abandoning me. And I keep saying, I have abandonment issues with my dad. I have abandonment issues with my mom. I have abandonment issues with me.
Right.
That's where I haven't resolved it.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Oh
God, it's helpful. I would go so far as to say you are a genius, and I love it.
Well, if I was a genius, I'd be on a beach somewhere and just having someone pay all my bills.
There you go. All right. So what about family systems approach? I know this is something that you work with. So could you explain to our viewers what the family systems approach is and how can it help them better understand abandonment? Maybe you've already kind of touched on this, but could you dive in a little? Okay.
But I can dive in a little further. Let's see. If you were coaching a football team that was on a football field, and you had a Bluetooth, earphone, and the center, the person who hikes the ball, the center had a Bluetooth, and you're the coach. If the center told you everything that was going on, would that give you some information about how to coach the team?
Yeah.
Well, of course, it would give you some information. That's right. But it would only give you information from the center's point of view.
Yes.
Now, if we then take someone, put them at the ceiling of the stadium, looking down, seeing both teams and everything that's happening, then telling the coach what's going on and giving him some advice, do you think the coach would even do better?
Yes.
The coach would even do better. And because he has zoomed out his view. And so the limited view from just the center would say, oh, I see JR is over there, so I want you to send Smithy to the right. And the coach says, okay, tell Smithy to go to the right. We're going to go that way. The guy up here is going, oh, but he doesn't see the whole picture. You need to send Smithy to the left, not to the right, because I see the whole thing and what's going to happen after this and after that, the way they're lined up. The center doesn't see that.
Right.
Now the coach tells Smithy, no, Smithy, go to the left. Don't go to the right. In the view that you have, whether narrow or wide, defines what your solutions are going to be and will inform your decisions and your problem solving. So if you take a family systems perspective, rather than just you and the world, you take you and the whole system and see how it operates and see how relationships operate, then that informs your decision making, your recovery, your running left or running right. You will then make fewer errors. You'll have better problem formulation, and you'll move forward better with a more systems approach than just, okay, you're upset with your mom. Tell me about your anger. Okay, we're done for today.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing evil about that. It's just not a wide enough perspective. For example, if a couple comes to me and they argue all the time, I can take a more narrowed or what individualistic view of their problem, and they're arguing. That pulls me in to be the referee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're here to fight, and I'm supposed to save them from this fight. And Mary wants me to fix John, and John wants me to fix Mary, right?
Yes.
That's why they're here. You need to fix my husband, you need to fix my wife. And they argue all the time. And I can go, well, let me try to help you say different things when you argue. Let me try to help you be a better listener. There's nothing wrong with saying better things, nothing wrong with being a better listener. And in fact, Mary and John, here's some books you can read about how you can communicate better, or maybe how you can argue less. That is if I have that perspective or paradigm, that's what I would offer them. If I have this perspective, which is a family systems perspective, I would then go, Mary and John, you guys fight all the time. Are you aware of that? Well, yes, that's why we've come here, for you to help us to stop it. And I go, well, I'm not sure you want to stop it, is first of all, because I think there are some upsides as well as some downsides to your arguing all the time. Because in a family systems perspective, everything is paradoxical. The bad has good sides and the good has bad sides. So that's always true in life. If I give up on my guilt, if I feel guilty all the time, do you know that if I get up on my guilt, it could really mess up my life and my anxiety? Because my guilt keeps me safe in some ways. So I have to be able to manage the anxiety before I can give up the guilt.
Got it.
Because if I stop feeling guilty, I may lose 3 friends and half my family. So I better hold on to my guilt because it keeps me connected to all them. Well, let's try to work that out so you can give up your guilt and not suffer with the downsides.
Right.
That's the way you put it together.
Mm-hmm.
So John and Mary, I'd say, hey, Mary and John, you guys came to me and you said you feel so distant with each other. You're just so distant and you can't get close and you argue all the time. What if I were to suggest that you're actually enmeshed and you're too close And that's why you argue so much. You ping each other too much. You have too much closeness. You need more distance so that you can be more close. Now, I've just shared with them a family systems perspective of what's going on with them. Do you think that might be more helpful, an approach and a road to go down, than here's a book and let's talk better?
Absolutely.
So that's why I value the family systems approach. It looks at the whole, and it looks at the underlying root causes rather than just the content. It looks at the process of what's going on. I don't care about their arguments. They would argue about anything. Usually they would say, I'd say, do you guys argue about really important things? Oh, no, not really.
Mm-hmm.
We just argue all the time about nothing, because it's not about the arguments.
Right.
About managing distance, and it's about managing intimacy, and that's a broader view. And if we could look at that, then we go, oh well, you've just changed my mind about that. So we've just reframed it, and now their arguments are harder to have.
Right.
Why? Because I just exposed the game.
Exactly.
So now they're going, well, I want to fight, but that will just make us more. Oh, Jerry just messed up our whole way of doing our marriage. I'm glad I messed that up. What I wanted to do.
Cheers to that.
We could have a better marriage. Well, I've preached long enough.
There you go. So awesome. Thank you for describing that. And I love all of that, and how I'm sure our viewers could relate to potentially a relationship they are in, or a past relationship or something, as far as like exposing the game, right? Exposing the game of arguing and what that is. So let's dive into self-differentiation. Self-differentiation. What is this? This is something you talk a lot about in your work, and could you tie it back into the abandonment topic as well?
I believe I could. Let me give that a try. And these are all big words, and they can be tricky because they sound so psychobabblish. But we're actually trying to use a shorthand to talk about an experience. So whenever you use a shorthand to talk about an experience, it can get wordy, or you can use weird words. Like, here's another word: undifferentiated closeness. That's just enmeshment, because it's closeness without any differentiation. Mm-hmm. You're just globbed together. Differentiated closeness is you are you, they are them, and you connect. That's self-differentiation. Differentiated closeness, where we balance the togetherness and separate forces in all of the family system, because it's all balanced on togetherness and separate forces. And if you don't balance those well, if they don't balance well in your life, you'll become over together, over separate. You'll fall off the edge on all those. We want to have an even, where I am me while connecting with you.
Right.
And that's a simple definition of self-differentiation. It's not my term. It's a Murray Bowen family systems term. He was the grandfather of family therapy. And the self-differentiation is in other words, self-differentiation is the family systems word for self-esteem.
Got it.
Because self-esteem is an individualistic notion. It doesn't really have much connection with other people. It's how I feel inside. Not a bad term. I use self-esteem. I use all the individualistic terms also. But I also want to go, but how much are you a self in a system? Because we are never not in systems. Mm-hmm. And Bowen would say, your family of origin is forever in you. So right. It's not like, and one of the goals that I work on is how can we get them out of us so that we can be more of us, right. And not just in my case, Wardwell, super self, we call it. That's my mother's maiden name and my dad's name. and I become the wise Wardwell super self that I'm a part of, but yet I'm still Jerry. I'm not much of Jerry. I'm just Jerry Wise Wardwell. Well, when am I going to be Jerry?
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, not Wise Wardwell. I'll always have some, but I want to be more me than more it.
Yes.
And so self-differentiation is the process of you differentiating from that clump that we've grown up in, becoming ourselves, maturing, becoming adults, and being able to connect with others. That's maturity. That's self-differentiation. I know where I end and where you begin.
Mm-hmm.
That's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not telling anybody it's easy.
Right.
I've been practicing this for a long time, and it's still tricky,
Mm-hmm.
but
So,
it's a worthwhile thing. Oh, and abandonment. I'm sorry, I didn't go to.
yeah,
Do
no,
we
that's
for me?
yes, please. Yeah. Attach those. So how does knowing more about that help someone, viewers watching right now who are dealing with these abandonment issues in their life?
Right, and I believe if we can reduce the enmeshment, we can reduce the abandonment.
Okay.
Because it's the enmeshment that pings us and gives us that pain about abandonment. And again, that enmeshment is a part of our fantasy and fairy tale life, that someone's going to love me like I always wanted them to. People are going to take care of me. People are going to, it's a fairy tale kind of world. And when we grow up as adults, we know, wait a minute, I'm going to have to take care of me.
Right.
Doesn't mean I can't find someone who doesn't love me or doesn't care about me, but I'm going to have to take care of me. Not mom and dad, not, and so I'm going to have to give up that fairy tale. Also, by being enmeshed, I think I will somehow get what I need, or at least my dependency needs. I'll get what I need. The problem is you don't. Enmeshment is always a failed process.
Mm-hmm.
Or we use the word codependency too. Enmeshment is the family systems term. Codependency is the chemical dependency term for that kind of dynamic. And if we are enmeshed, we don't get what we need.
Right.
So we want to work on enmeshment. Our abandonment issues will go down, and our abandonment pinging, and our abandonment fears. Because it's only when you're enmeshed like this, you're going to have so much fear and anxiety.
Got it.
And so we want to reduce that. If you increase self-differentiation, being yourself, again, didn't I talk about how we self-abandon?
Yes.
If we start reducing our self-abandon and differentiate and be our real selves, be an authentic self, well, then we're not going to be self-abandoning so much, and it's going to reduce and it's going to go down, and we're not going to feel that pain. Somebody says, well, I just wonder about our friendship. And then we freak out and feel abandoned because we have an abandonment reaction. But if I'm more self-differentiated, if I'm more self-caring, and if I can count on me, I then don't get so reactive. And I can say, well, that's sad to hear. I'm sorry you feel that way. Can we talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
That's more of an adult approach rather than, oh my gosh, you're going to take away everything that's inside of me. Well, that's because we're enmeshed.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So the self-differentiation goes hand in hand. The other thing we'll do if we self-differentiate, we will let go of some primary abandoners, because oftentimes we have a bunch of abandoners that we've collected over the years. And we can let go of some of those abandoners and find people who don't abandon.
Right.
I always was worried all the time that I was going to be abandoned, all the time. As a pastor, when I was younger, that everybody's going to leave me. Do you know what I was afraid of?
Mm-mm.
I would leave me. Because I couldn't count on me.
Right.
So I feared everybody was going to do this.
Right.
And so I have to work on that self and the sense of self so that I can then function in the system, which then feels like it feels very connected. And in fact, I don't know if can I mention an author's book?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Brene Brown, in her new book, Braving the Wilderness. Excellent book. In fact, I'll jump up here. The quest for true belonging and the courage to stand alone. Braving the Wilderness. And so it's the courage to stand alone while connecting and belonging. And she comes from the same background of Bowen Family Systems. So does Harriet Lerner, so does Brene Brown, so does Jenny Brown in her book, Growing Yourself Up. And we all share the same family systems notions.
Got it.
So I hope I haven't confused with all this.
No, I think that's beautiful. And I'm really blown away by this conversation. I love talking about this. We did an Overcoming Codependency event last year that was amazing and just changed so many lives. And I still just get the chills thinking about it. And so this conversation is really bringing me, back into that as well, because it is really, right, how is it that we can connect and have these amazing intimate relationships while at the same time self-differentiating, right? Maintaining ourself and not abandoning ourself. And I think that's so key. So before we start wrapping up here, I want to ask you one question. So one thing we're doing for our audience is every interview in this Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal series, we're doing a challenge. So if you were to have an action step or an exercise or something that everyone could take on to help them reduce self-abandonment, what would that be? To put you on the spot.
Sure. No. And I would have 20 of them. But I'm trying to think of if I can share, it is the process of changing your paradigm versus taking action steps. Because if you have an inadequate paradigm and not looking in a family systems way, you can take all the actions you want and you'll still come up with the same problem, or you'll continue to recycle. So what I tell people to do is, let's start out by learning how to see differently. How can we see differently? And that will take some learning, such as reading the book Growing Yourself Up by Jenny Brown. That would be where I would have someone start, rather than going, okay, you just need to tell all those people who abandoned you to go away. You can do that. And that may not even be a bad thing to do. But the problem is, a year later, you're going to have them all replaced with people who abandon you. So any step I give you, if the engine's not running right, it's gonna. So what I try to do is try to fix the engine. And so the engine, like reading Jenny Brown's book, Growing Yourself Up, watching the videos that I have up there, because that's why I put them up there for free also on my YouTube, so people can get that information. And then I work with people to help live that out and tweak that out and how they can apply that to themselves. Getting back to your question, is there anything I would, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Begin to resist self-abandonment. Begin to notice it and begin to resist it and go, gosh, I think I'm just giving up on myself right here. I'm giving in. I've totally just disregarded me. I'm not going to do that right now. I may do it poorly. And by the way, I have a saying, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Because it's still worth doing.
Right.
So it's worth doing poorly. I'd rather you do it poorly than not at all. And so do it poorly to begin to resist self-abandonment. begin to count on yourself.
Yes.
And that's self-love. You know, we talk about self-love and self-acceptance, but I'm kind of talking about it from a systems perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I could say self-love, but a lot of people, I like to put it into real operational terms. Like, let's stop self-abandoning. Stop leaving yourself in the corner and going on with whatever you're doing. And when somebody says, you know, when mom says, well, you're coming on Christmas and you're coming Christmas Eve because that's the way we've always done it. Self-abandonment goes, okay, mom, I'll be there. That's self-abandonment because that's not what you want. It's not
Right.
what you want to do. And you say, mom, I know we've always done that. I understand the importance of that, but I have a different preference and I'm not going to give up my preference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how I deal with the fallout from that, I may need to talk to Jerry about. What do I do with the fallout? Because it's an ongoing process of staying self-differentiated, because mom's going to retort and there's going to be this dance going back and forth. And if you continue to work on that dance, you will find yourself coming out of the woods.
Mm.
And that's
Awesome. Thank you.
is helpful, but
It's amazingly helpful, and I appreciate it. And yes, everyone, please take that on. Start recognizing when you are self-abandoning and starting to resist it, and starting to look at the areas where you're not counting on yourself, or you're, what you just said reminded me of something my partner Ike says a lot, which is like, are you operating from inspiration, desperation, or obligation, right? And it sounds like, right, that scenario was like, oh, I'm obligated, or I feel obligated to go do this family time or whatever when I am inspired to do something different, right? So I love it.
The other thing nice about healing self-abandonment and recovering from self-abandonment is that it's a prophylaxis or a protection against abandonment. If I am not abandoning me, and I'm not going to, how can you abandon me?
Right.
How are you going to do that?
Right.
Now, I may feel upset that you've changed your mind, or there may be some real grief or loss, but nobody can abandon me if I'm not abandoning me. Because
Right.
I'm still me and I still have me.
Right.
I'm not abandoned.
That's so good. I love that. Thank you. This is so amazing, Jerry. I really appreciate this. This is all super amazing information, and I'm so glad that we were able to do this. I would love it if you would share how people can learn more about you, and we will also have a button below this video, and it'll lead them over to your website. So you might just say your website or wherever else you want, your YouTube channel, that kind of stuff.
Well, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and all of those would be under Jerry Wise Relationship Systems.
Okay.
And then I do have a website by that same name, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. And you can get on my mailing list, or you can contact me. And my contact information is on all the videos on the YouTube channel. So those are all there, and they're all free. And so I think you would benefit from them. And then if anyone wants to work with me, they can contact me.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Please, everyone, take advantage of all the great free videos and free stuff that Jerry has, and work with him if you're inspired, because this is a great, amazing stuff. I'm totally blown away by it. I appreciate everything you've said today. Are there any last insights or anything you feel like you left out, or we could talk for hours more, but any last tidbits you want to share before we hop off?
I had a note here that, and I think that the issue of learning to count on yourself is what's so important. And we have been taught not to. And we can increase in that area, and also learn to be our age. I don't have to live like a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old in a 64-year-old body. I can learn to be a 64-year-old, and I never thought that was possible. I never thought that was possible. So I think there is a way out, and there is a way to change. And I want to give hope about that to folks.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I love it. You have definitely given hope and so much more. I appreciate everything that you've said, and thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Andy, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate you being patient and tolerant with all my gab, and it was great to be on the workshop today.
It was my pleasure. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Jerry's interview. And here once again is to our journey to breaking free from abandonment and betrayal. Bye, everybody. Hey everyone, I wanted to shoot a quick wrap-up video for you from this last interview with Jerry Wise. I love this man. I thought his message was so powerful. It touched me in my own abandonment issues in my life in so many ways, and I really hope that you guys got a lot out of it, as did I. So one of the first things that Jerry said that I really wanted to touch on was how a lot of us, right, have had these experiences of being abandoned as a child, right? It might have been a parent or a death or something like that, a divorced parent, a parent who leaves, those kinds of things. So one thing I thought was just so interesting was how he said that we maintain the integrity of the parent who abandoned us because we need them to love us. And I've had my own experiences as a child when my father and mother got divorced, and I never quite realized how much I did that same thing, really, until Jerry just said that. So how many of you can relate to the fact that you may have maintained the integrity of that parent because they were, right, they were your rock, they were your brick wall, they were that person that was you required love from. And if they left, then you had to maintain the integrity of them. And so if it wasn't something that was going on in their life or a challenge they were having in your life, which is why they left, then it must have been because of you. So you internalize it. I just thought this was so powerful. So if this is something that you recognize in your own life, in your own past, be aware of it, shine light on it. This is just an amazing acknowledgement in your life if this is something that you can relate to. So I wanted to touch on that because I related to it so much. And then this really tied into Jerry talking about our self-abandonment. So if this is an experience you've had, or you've had a similar experience of abandonment in your life, right, we can make it our fault because we want to maintain that integrity of that parent or somebody else who we looked up to. Making it our fault is a way to eventually start to abandon ourselves, right? Because we're no longer caring for ourselves. We're saying something's wrong with us. Something must be wrong with us. So we abandon ourselves. And this is how all of these abandonment issues, this recreating the past, starts to come into our future. This is how we can have relationships over and over again cycle in our life. And we have this continual experience of abandonment, of betrayal, of being left, those kinds of things, because we have literally stopped caring for ourselves. We have literally stopped loving ourselves because we started telling ourselves when we were a kid that it was our fault, right? That person left, or they didn't choose me on the kickball team, or whatever the experience was for you. So just take this information in. This is very powerful stuff that Jerry shared today. And another thing I wanted to touch on real quick was this self-differentiation. I mentioned it during the interview. It reminded me a lot of the conversations I had with people in our Overcoming Codependency event, which was so amazing and magical to me. It was one of my favorite things I've ever done, actually. And it reminded me a lot of that because we talked a lot about this self-abandonment, this, difference between being enmeshed with your partner and being whole and complete on your own, but connected to your partner. So what Jerry was talking about was the self-differentiation, being able to recognize yourself as a different person from your partner, or a friend, or a parent, or a family system in the case of Jerry, and standing on your own, but also being connected. So he talked about how when we reduce enmeshment, it reduces our abandonment or our fears of abandonment, because we're starting to count on ourselves, we're starting to rely on ourselves and care for ourselves again. So, another thing he said was, if I'm not abandoning me, it's actually protective from, being abandoned, from having the experience of being abandoned. So all really powerful stuff. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And I last wanted to touch on the challenge that Jerry gave us. was to just start to notice when you are self-abandoning, when you are disregarding yourself, when you are giving up on yourself, when you are not counting on yourself, and start to begin to resist that. Recognize it, start to begin to resist it. And we'd love it if you'd share your experience of that in the Facebook group and take on this challenge today. All right, everyone, thank you so much once again for tuning into this conference and tuning into this last interview with Jerry Wise, and we'll see you on the next one.
About safety and enmeshment and fusion. I've had the experience of having clients, Jerry, who've been in a relationship where they've been very close and very enmeshed in the relationship, but they did not feel safe. And from a family systems approach, I realized that can lead to problems.
And it certainly can, and confusion as well, because a lot of people believe that enmeshment and fusion should equal safety. It should feel safe. And by the way, my name's Jerry Wise, and this is Andrew Holzman, and we're therapists at Family Tree Counseling Associates. And I want to welcome you to another one of our videos. And maybe on this subject we can help you with the aspect of enmeshment or fusion. Mm-hmm. And I remember you asking me the other day about that issue, and it seemed, in fact, I was talking recently to someone about why fusion or enmeshment, couples who experience that, feel so tight or so close emotionally, but yet it doesn't feel safe, and it doesn't feel comfortable. And I think from a family systems perspective, it's not, because fusion always means you gotta be me, I gotta be you. That's kind of what fusion means. And so if that contract is ever broken, then there's some kind of consequence or disturbance or irritability or distance or something that happens if that fusion isn't maintained. So the fusion must always be maintained in a relationship for it to feel comfortable. So at any time it can kind of blow up.
Right. And I see therapy as being kind of the idea of how do you find yourself? How do you try to find yourself within, whether it's within a relationship or just if you're working on yourself. And if you're fused with someone, it's very comfortable. It's very easy to kind of take on their attributes or want to serve them or give up, some of yourself in this relationship. And people feel pretty comfortable doing that for a time, and then they get irritated by that. They get hurt by that because it's not real closeness. It's a pseudo-closeness. And if you try to do something different, if you have your own interests, is there something you want to do that's outside of the system of what you've created, then there's a lot of conflict, a lot of pain, and people going, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. This doesn't feel good to me.
You change the arrangement.
Change the arrangement, and that's uncomfortable for folks.
And I think maybe we should define fusion or enmeshment a little bit.
Sure.
Because a lot of people may not know exactly what I mean. I'll bet they know what we mean by experience, but maybe we can kind of define what fusion or enmeshment, or we also call kind of codependency, is like. I think it's a relationship where all of the emphasis is put on the other and not on the self. Fusion is a de-selfing. There's no me, there's only us. And that we-ness, there's too much we-ness and not enough I-ness. And that's kind of what fusion is, or enmeshment, and that I live underneath your skin and you live underneath my skin.
Right. And a lot of people see that as love, as romance, as the way relationships should be, as evidenced in movies and in songs, and that feels wonderful, and that is romantic, and I think every couple experiences that, especially when they first get together, or most couples do, where they're finishing each other's sentences, and they're being intimate, and they're being close, and jobs don't matter, and kids, if you have them, don't matter as much. Everything is kind of sacrificed to the experience of this relationship. And people love that, and they miss that, and they want to maintain that, but there's a downside to it. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the downside to being joined at the hip, and not seeing that you can experience and take care of yourself in certain ways. I've had clients who
or being yourself.
Being yourself. I've had clients who are it's almost like the Snoopy cartoon where he's a vulture, just poised, waiting for the other person to, kind of do something because they're scared of doing something on their own for fear of upsetting this relationship, of being yelled at or disappointing the person. So they're just kind of waiting around, as we would say, codependency. You don't have a self. You're kind of looking to the other to validate you. And it's kind of a difficult way to be in a relationship, because when the other person really wants to, in my experience, have that person have stuff.
And like you say, that safety is an issue, because that de-selfing or that too much we-ness or that enmeshment is always precarious. It's always got to be worked on and be maintained. You just can't be comfortable where you're okay and I'm okay.
Correct.
Where you're a plus and I'm a plus. That comfort level is not there. There's always a sense of there's only us. And so the I-ness shouldn't come in. And you mentioned a very good point, Andy, about how our culture so promotes fusion or enmeshment as equal to love. All the love songs, all the movies, everything says that's what love's about. If you can just get this oceanic togetherness, then that's true love, and that's what we're all working towards. When actually, if you look at developmental psychology, there's only 2 times in life when that would be a healthy state to be in. And one of them is when you're an infant. You need that enmeshment with someone who's bonding with you as a caregiver. You have to have that. That dependency is normal. Then I think of another stage in which you've just fallen in love. And it's that honeymoon phase. And that's kind of a very enmeshing time. But other than that, there's no other healthy time where that would be normal. That's not normal love. Normal love, I think of, and I think we're also talking about, maybe we define it as, enmeshment is the 50-50 model. I bring my 50%, you bring your 50%, we equal 100%. But isn't that a problem when I say that? Because that's an enmeshment model. A non-enmeshment model is I bring 100% and you bring 100%, and then we have a relationship. That's a healthy model. The other is I bring my half, you bring your half, and we'll try to make one person out of it.
You complete me.
You complete me, kind of thing. And that always fails. It always will feel uncomfortable, unsafe.
And will break down.
It's
problematic, and most of the folks that we see come into our office are dealing with the sadness of not having that oceanic feeling, of not having that enmeshment and that fusion, and that we had that, and this person changed, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 15 years into the relationship. Things are different. They don't feel that same connection, which, there are other reasons for that. There are many reasons for that people cut off, but they miss that big glob of connection. That's how I think of it.
Right.
And it's really just, you lose yourself in that, and I think at one person either gets very bored with that, or one person starts to grow and they want to have a self, and again, that upsets the system. Either way upsets the system.
And wouldn't you find that when you deal with couples, that many times couples have come because one person has decided they want to be more of their true selves.
Right.
And then that upsets the apple cart.
Right.
And then now we got to come into therapy because one person is starting to grow and the other person's saying, hey, what happened to what we had?
Right.
And the other person wants to grow says, well, I'm not totally happy with exactly what
Right.
we had before. And I'd like to find more of me. And I believe that we're also taught in society that once you have that initial enmeshment called the honeymoon phase of a marital, because there's stages of marriage life as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the honeymoon phase, that's supposed to be the norm for the rest of the relationship, for the rest of your life. Well, that's a myth. And that people don't realize that a part of marriage is how can this marriage be big enough for each of us to grow and to change and to be who we are, to become who we are. And boy, that's very threatening for a lot of people to think of that, to think in those terms.
I think of that as true intimacy, that you can have someone in your life who really starts to see that you're going to grow and that can accept you, and that's healthy. It's healthy to have a relationship where the person brings up feelings in you and brings up issues in you, where you start to see your life in a different way, and you grow beyond some of the pains and injuries of your childhood, and you start to have strength. And in my marriage, my wife helps me do that. She gets to me in ways that bring up feelings that challenge me, that help me work on myself, and I think that's a good experience. It's not something that you would look forward to and think about in terms of when you get married, but it is something that does happen. So, at Family Tree we think, well, kind of almost the key point is the person that you marry or the person you're in a relationship with helps you grow by getting under your skin, by kind of challenging you, by bringing up things that you might try to push aside. And enmeshment and fusion can be that, where you're pushing it aside. You're just focused on the other person. You're just seeing
Right.
their attributes.
Helps you to avoid.
Helps you avoid, the kind of the experience of feeling things that non-fusion would have you feel.
And I think that's a great point, because enmeshment is denial.
Mm-hmm.
Enmeshment denies the self, denies the self's issues, and we just fuse. I become you, you become me. And so I don't have to look at anything. But that doesn't mean I'm happy, and it doesn't mean I know myself or I am myself. And like you say, the family tree model we have of marriage, and thinking of that as how a spouse really does and has the ability to push our buttons, because the knots in my head fit the holes in their head.
Right.
And they really do push all of our issues because we're in a very close relationship. Whereas the relationship I have with the clerk at J.C. Penney's wouldn't do that, because we're not in that kind of relationship. But a marital relationship will push all those buttons, and that is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
We see that as a good thing.
Right.
For most people, they look at it and see it as a negative thing.
Correct.
Because society says that's a negative thing. And really, that's society going against the grain. I mean, it's going against what's reality. And so we have to be careful what we learn from society about marriage and relationships, and because it's all kind of gooey and fluffy and
Right.
and puppy dog-ish and music video-ish.
And don't you find that the less healthy a relationship in terms of your family of origin, the more fantasy that you have about having a great relationship or a fused relationship. So the more dysfunctional family that you grew up in, you're going to really expect this relationship that you're in when you're married to be this perfect relationship. And of course it can't live up to your expectations. There's no way. And so
Right.
you're disappointed and you're in pain and you don't know how to talk about it, and you're trying for more fusion and more connection in the way that you know how. So you're going to over stress the system in that way.
And I think that's a perfect point. And probably a good point to end on for our video, Andy. That right, the more dysfunctional our past, the more we'll idealize what we're going to get in marriage, and it's all going to turn out beautifully. I hope you've been helped by our video today, and I want to thank Andy Holzman, who's a therapist here at Family Tree.
And Jerry Wise.
Thank you. And I hope this has helped you regarding enmeshment and fusion, and to think more about that. If you want help, give us a call. You can contact us, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Anna Hampton, on her blog, states, "I don't trust words. I even question actions, but I never doubt patterns." It is so easy to become an expert on narcissism. There's a lot of information out there. A lot of people put a lot of time into learning about a narcissist. Again, that's not a bad thing to do. However, it is so easy to stay unaware of ourselves and our patterns of interactions with the narcissist. And I think this is the way out. This is the way to find ourselves. One client said to me, "I can tell exactly what my narcissistic mother is going to do, but I have no idea what I should do. I don't know me." We blame the narcissist for the hurt, our low self-esteem, meanness, their lack of empathy. We can fear and anticipate the narcissist's reactions, actions, words, and behavior. Again, we are the expert on the narcissist, but we're not the expert on ourselves. And that's what I try to help those who come who are adult children of narcissists, who have narcissistic tendencies who have tendencies towards narcissistic relationships. One way out of this dilemma is to focus on the patterns that include us. Not just the cause, but how we are a participant in those patterns. Many of us have learned a lot about how the narcissist functions. We've missed the important information of how we respond, react, how our anxiety works, and what is our pattern behavior. And what I think is really important is how that anxiety works in a relationship with a narcissist. Let me give you an example. I think you just, a narcissist says to a wife or a girlfriend, "Hey, I think you're just stupid and wrong. I don't know why you're this way. It drives me crazy. I'm even embarrassed to go out with friends because of you." You then have your reactions, hooking into your low self-esteem, hooking into your shame, hooking into guilt and negative feelings about yourself or worthlessness. And then he decides, "Hey, that I did do that. I'm going to tell her I love her, and I'm going to buy her some flowers." Words, "I love you." He buys you flowers. Actions. And remember what Anna talked about? I don't trust words. I even am uncertain and don't even trust fully actions, but patterns I don't doubt. His pattern is he ridicules you and puts you down. Later he says, "I love you," and buys you flowers. He feels entitled to be mean to you because he always knows he can stabilize you and the relationship through love bombing and or gifts. But it is fake attention. And again, how capable a narcissist's ability is to love is minimal to none to have true and healthy love. He learns he can fix things after bad behavior. It gives him more latitude to not respect you or put you down in the relationship in the future. because he knows he has that option. And that's the pattern he can use. Our pattern in that scenario is I accept the I love you. Number one, I feel hurt and absorb all of his craziness, his words, his criticism, his distorted image of me, and we absorb that. That's one of the first part of our pattern in this. And then when he turns around and goes, I love you, and then we accept the I love you, we're thrilled because he really cares, and then you even give him more credit because he went out of his way and bought you flowers. So he must really, really care for him to do that, because he doesn't normally do that. But in this case, he did. If he can get us back into the same pattern and back into our same lanes. Your anxiety and pain have gone down because the conflict is resolved for the moment. Because now he said, I love you. Now he gave me flowers. And he is nicer at this point. And you're very happy because you feel you're being loved by someone. He meets your unlovability needs. And by the way, these are issues that we have to work on our side of the pattern, because that gets us connected to this dysfunctional pattern with the narcissist. You have accepted his fix for his bad behavior, and emotionally we absorb it. So we're doing all of this absorbing, which is our pattern. His is to get his way, to control, to demean, to be non-empathetic. Another term for these patterns is the unspoken contracts. And it describes the pattern of interacting, or unspoken contracts. What is your unspoken contract with your narcissist? How have you both colluded without saying it that this is how we're going to act together? You come and be my supply. I then use you for shame shedding. You are upset and have high anxiety because I, as the narcissist, unconsciously know you cannot manage your anxiety or your sense of self, that I can now play good cop and I can persuade you to become less anxious and promise you the fantasy that I love you and that you can be loved and that I care about you. It actually meets our fantasy needs rather than reality needs. And then we respond with feeling better. When actually he has no guilt, nor does he really care about your feelings, I now can continue to use this process to manipulate you. Most times that is unconscious. There are times, if they're sociopathic or if they are really broken, they will do it consciously. And then the game begins again. Don't look at the words or actions, but pattern of the words, patterns of the actions, and patterns of your internal feelings. That's what we want to focus on. And that, I think, helps more people recover from their narcissistic relationships. And here's a very key phrase: patterns speak louder than words or actions. Again, there's the feeling acting pattern. He feels a shame trigger. Maybe he got shamed or ridiculed at work. He comes home, he shames you. You feel your past hurts and present pain and trigger feelings of unlovability, unacceptability. And mapping out these patterns can help us to intervene and to change the patterns. For example, let's just put a pin in one part of that process. And we can put that pin in the point at which I feel relief when he says I love you and when he gives me flowers. And when the point when my anxiety goes down, let's put a pin right there and say, is there anything I can do about that point of the interaction. Many times people come to me and they will say, how can I get him to stop? And it's like, well, you're not even talking about the pattern. You're talking about changing him. Let's talk about how you can change you and then see what he does from there. And so we feel relief or anxiety goes down when he gives us, I love you, gives us flowers. I choose to become, let's say, unfazed by the gifts or the words. I'm not angry, I'm just neutral, and I'm not celebratory. I work on loving me. He says, I love you. I do not buy that. I then choose to love me. And he gives me flowers as his I'm sorry, which he does not mean and does not mean for the long run. I then work on accepting me. I work on validating myself, not the distorted view that he has of me as a narcissist. I don't go with this distorted view. And I know it's a distorted view because he's a narcissist. That's a given. So I don't buy into that. So instead of being oh so happy and oh so relieved, I want to work on being more neutral about that. And that communicates something about this pattern and can begin to subtly change the dynamic. If his anger, judgments of you, and blaming and of you is all distorted, and they are all just these mental traps, then why is his I love you and here's some flowers not distorted also and are mental traps as well? They are either way. One's nicer, one's not so nice, but we don't buy into the niceness. And we want to work on not absorbing the negative. So I can choose to become unfazed by the gifts and the words. I don't have to be rejecting. I don't have to be mean. I can be neutral. In the very beginning, let's put a pin in the beginning of that pattern between he and you. In the beginning, I fall for his criticism and truth. I fall for his reality and the way he truly feels about me. But I can work on, no, that's not really true about me. That is Coca-Cola talk, which if you listen to other videos of mine, and I hope you will, and listen to the playlists about self-differentiation and also about adult children of narcissism, that's not the truth about me. He has a distorted view. He is projecting his shame onto me. And instead of listening to his diatribe about how bad I am, and I can make an excuse to take my exit, that I need to leave. I can choose also not to absorb it or internalize it. This is a true goal for it is to be, because the true goal is for it to be internalized in me. I can even practice, I could even write down in the beginning when the narcissist was saying, I think you're stupid and wrong and act like a child. You can even write those things down and practice not absorbing them. Put it down on paper and read it out loud and practice not taking it in. We can even do those kinds of exercises to help us become stronger. I can choose not to internalize that. I can choose not to absorb it. I'm not sure you can choose to make him not do it. And that's what many people come to me and say, how can you help me make him stop? Well, I mean, I don't know. How do I help the ocean not to hit the shore and the sand? I don't know how to do that. But I can help you with where you're standing on the shore so you don't get wet. I accept that he is not normal with a problem. He is abnormal with a problem, not normal with a problem. He's abnormal with a problem. And so his view of me in reality is distorted and gets weaponized in a relationship. And we don't want to act like he thinks I am. Don't act like he thinks you are. And so I don't want to act that way. I don't even want to take it in emotionally. I can hear something and I can learn to hear something without it piercing here. And that's the practice of self-differentiation. A simple example in another family has to do with a client that I had, but we'll call him Eric. Eric comes back to me after visiting his parents' home for a meal. He's upset and says, they treat me like I've never left home. They treat me like I'm still a child. And I hate that. And I ask Eric, do you act like a child when you're there? Eric says, yes. That's what I hate most about going home. And going home to my parents and how they cause me to act. I said, maybe we can change how you act like a child when you are there. Let's start with you. You are an expert on how your parents behave, because you could probably recount to me everything that they shared with you. The painful parts, the parent-child relationship parts, all the ways in which they want you to be a child. But let's start with you. Let's become more of an expert on what you do when you go, not what they do. I want to say, if you're in a relationship with a toxic or malignant narcissist, actually any narcissist, I would recommend you get some help from a therapist or a coach. You can contact us at the website. And I hope you'll read a couple of books which might be of help to you. Marjalis Fjellstad, that'll be down in the description. Stop Caretaking the Borderliner Narcissist. And the second book of hers is Healing from a Narcissistic Relationship. She's a marriage and family therapist, has personal experience of narcissism, and really has written some good couple of books. I would recommend those. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and be wise.